Welcome to episode number 29 of AirWaves. I'm Buzz Stone, and it's another closet classic. This time, look what I dug out of the closet. Sitting here on my home studio table, it's an ITC Delta cart machine from the early 80s. It's up next on AirWaves.
Buzz Stone's Airwaves.
Hey, this is Buzz back with you. Thanks for joining me for episode 29. It's another closet classic. This time, it's an ITC cart deck made by ITC, stands for International Tapetronics Control. And this model here, the Delta series, came out in 1983. Now, these cart machines, they were the workhorse of broadcasting, radio broadcasting. Everywhere that I ever worked, except for the very early years before this machine came out, you saw these machines more than likely. Now, they were considered the Cadillac of cart machines, and they had a high price tag. As a matter of fact, I looked on eBay a little while ago and checked, and there are some of these for sale, and they were ranging anywhere from $300 to $600 for one of these. I picked this up on eBay about 3 years ago. I think I was on a nostalgia trip, decided to buy one, and I actually got this at a good price. I think it was like around $30 plus shipping. But these things are boat anchors, man. They weigh a lot. They're heavy, so shipping was probably as much or more than the cart deck. But you see, I've got a cart loaded in here. And in case you're not familiar with carts, they're basically very similar to an 8-track tape, except you see they have a clear top so you can see the tape in there. And what that tape is, it's an endless loop of 1/4-inch recording tape, and it's spliced together. So it plays round and round and round, but what we would do is we would put a tone on the cart, which would cause it to stop at the beginning of a recording. Now, I've got a cart loaded in here, and I've got, if you could see the back of this, I've got all kinds of cables, adapters and everything to get this fed into my digital mixer. It's the DNR web station mixer. And I'm feeding it through the Q channel of the mixer. And I had to, in order to get a good volume level, I basically had to run everything wide open. But we're going to give it a try here. This is an old, this dates way back. This is probably from about early 70s. This is a radio jingle that was actually played on the air by KRUX. In Phoenix, Arizona, which was an AM top 40 station in the 60s all the way up, well, actually probably from the late 50s all the way up till I think about 1981. They were top 40 and one of the giants really in radio broadcasting back in their day. A lot of really talented people worked there, and they were in a constant battle with another AM top 40 station, KRIZ, or KRUX. They called it Crux, and KRIZ was called Kriz. And like I say, they battled it out, especially in the 60s and 70s. But I'm just going to go ahead and I'm not sure how well this is going to play. This thing is, 50 years old, so we'll give it a start here and see what happens. Yeah, started out a little low there. Some really old tape. Let's try it again here. It's a wonder that it even plays at all. And what I've done is I've taken the top off of this, and I'm going to move the camera so we're looking down in here, and I'll explain to you some things about the cart deck. But before I do that, looking at the front, you've got a green button, a yellow button, and a blue button. The green button, of course, is the start button. And then when it re-cues, you'll see the yellow light come on. That means it's in pause, ready to play again. Now also, we would record what were called tertiary tones on here. These were subaudible tones that the human ear couldn't hear, but the playback heads could pick up. And a lot of times, not on something short like this, but we also would record songs onto these carts in later years. And we would record a constant tone when we got about 30 seconds from the end of the song to alert the DJ that the song was ending. And you would see this yellow light flash, and then the closer it got to the end, it would flash faster and faster and faster until it was like the last 3 seconds or something. It'd be a solid yellow light to let you know that that was the end. And then the blue button, is fast forward, and that ran it on up to the next cue point on the cart. That was really handy. That was something that really was new with these series of machines, I believe, especially if you had music on a cart. You know, the carts came in different lengths. You could either buy them in predetermined lengths, or, and I had to do this many a time, we had a cart winding machine. You would put a big pancake, I forget how big, it was at least 12 inches in diameter, of tape, and you would wind it onto the cart with this machine, and then you would splice the two ends together, and you could make an exact length if you needed to, but generally they came in different lengths. And let's say you had a 3-minute song on a 5-minute tape, and you had 2 minutes, and if you didn't have that fast forward, you had to just sit there and wait for it to get back to the cue point again. And when you're running a radio show, you usually had a limited amount of these machines, you know, maybe 3 in later years, or if you were in a larger market, you know, they would have maybe more than 3 cart machines. And they also later came out with a triple decker, the Delta, I think it was a Delta 3 it was called, and which was nice. And you could actually put a tone at the end, like if you were using it to play commercials, you could put a tone at the end of each commercial, a subaudible tone, and it would automatically fire off the next commercial, which was really nice, because in the days before that, you had to sit there and listen to every commercial and then fire off the next one when it was over. And you know, when you're doing a live show and you need a bathroom break, there's very little time for you to get away. You become the master of the 3-minute bathroom break, because that's about was the average length of a song back then. So, but anyway, also, and I'll put a picture, flash it up here on the screen. You could also marry this unit with a record unit that's set next to it, and that was what you could use this to actually record music or commercials onto the machine. There's interfaces in the back. I'm sorry I can't show that to you, but so maybe you'll see the picture there, what that looked like when it was with it. And well, let's go ahead and move the camera here and look down on top of it so I can show you a few things. Okay, here we are looking down on top of the cart machine, and as you've probably noticed, these are very noisy machines, and they, of course, if it had the top on it here, that would help quiet it down some, but usually we also had them mounted in some kind of a wooden enclosure, which would also help muffle the sound. But as you'll see in here, we have, this is a stereo machine, and you have a playback head and you have a record head on here, and I've taken off, there's usually this metal guard that goes over that, but I've taken that off so you can see those in there. You also have, this is the capstan, and this is what helped propel the tape around. And you'll see here, this is a limit switch. If I hold that in, it simulates that I have a cart loaded into the machine, and I hit the start button, and this is the pinch roller. Comes up against the capstan, and that's what makes the tape rotate inside the cartridge. You'll notice when I let go of the limit switch here, that will go down. Now back in the day, these got a lot of use, and so the heads and the capstan and the pinch roller, they would all get residue on them from the tapes playing through there. So most stations had a rule that at the end of your shift, before you could leave, you had to clean the heads, the capstan and the pinch roller for the next guy. Okay, and we had Q-tips. Of course, they weren't this type. They had a long wooden stick with a bigger swab on the end, and we would use regular rubbing alcohol. This is isopropyl here, but it's pretty high. It's 91%, so it's pretty much pure alcohol. Usually, a lot of times though, they would use denatured alcohol, which reminds me of a funny story. I was at one station, and the engineer had put some alcohol in the control room with a label on it, it said for cleaning the cart heads. Well, after it had been in there for a while, all of a sudden a second label appeared on the bottle, and it said, "I spit in this bottle." Well, apparently the alcohol was disappearing at a quicker rate than he thought it should be. So he figured somebody was mixing it with their Coca-Cola or something. And so he thought if he put that label on the bottle there, "I spit in this bottle," that would deter people from drinking it. And I think that actually did work. A good one on the engineer's part there. But like I say, we would clean all these before the next jock came up, just as a courtesy. And also, of course, to keep it sounding good, because we're playing music on here. By the way, this is really old, which you can tell by looking at it. You see the label there, and I'm pretty sure that that's my handwriting on that number there. But the cart, when it was music, it would have the title across the top, and then the name of the group. Like, for instance, this is Don't Fear the Reaper or Blue Oyster Cult. Then you would have the intro time, which on this one it says it's looks like 13 seconds. That's the time that you had to talk, if you were the DJ, to talk over the intro of the song. And then it says it fades. That means the song fades out. It's not a cold, what we call a cold ending, where it ends abruptly. Then it says it's 5 minutes long. So that was pretty long song for back in the day. And I'll load that in there and just play a little bit of it. Hopefully YouTube won't pick up this song and say I've got a copyright violation here. See, so now I can hit fast forward and it'll run on up quickly back to the cue point. And of course, one thing you were doing when you were recording anything on one of these, you had to make sure you didn't record something over the splice. And you could see it would be a white piece of tape. So anytime you were recording something on one of these cards, you'd have to watch it and watch for that splice point and let it go by for a few seconds before you recorded something. Because otherwise, usually you would hear that. If you recorded over that splice point, it would have a little bump in the audio there. So I'm going to let that keep fast forwarding. But here in the back, you see we got the motor and the circuitry, and like I say, the outputs. There's two XLR outputs on the back, which I had to adapt to get into my mixer here, and of course the power cord. And then there's there's a remote control input here on the back, so you could have a button mounted, which we usually did, somewhere on the desktop, or the console, where we could remotely start the cart players. And then there's also another interface that went to the record unit that went that you could marry up with this machine. That's pretty much the way these worked. Again, this was the ITC Delta series. Came out in 1983. The International Tapetronics Control company, and they really were a step above anything else that had come before that, and they became workhorses of the radio broadcasting industry. Let me pull that out of there. And of course, again, it would have there was a metal top that went on there. The thing about these particular machines, that top was easily removable, so you could get in there and do an easier job of cleaning, because keep in mind, most situations, like I say, this would be in some kind of an enclosure. You had to do all that cleaning through the slot here in the front where the cartridge goes in. I also wanted to show you there are lots of different brands of carts. These gray ones, they were some of the earliest ones. They were made by Fidelipac, and they were used a lot early on. And then a new company came out. They were called, the gray one was Fidelipac. These were called AudioPac. And these were an improvement. They just, they moved easier, seemed to be more long-lasting. That hole there in the bottom, of course, is where the pinch roller comes up to engage the tape, to push it against the capstan and the heads on the machine. And like I said, they come in different lengths. Here's another AudioPac. This one has the solid back plate there, whereas this other one here has the slots in it, I guess to make it lighter, easier to move. And they even came in different colors. Generally they were black or gray. I've got a red one here somewhere, but I don't have it handy to get to. So anyway, like I say, I picked this up on eBay about 3 years ago, and they're still available. You can still buy them there now, but the prices I saw were really high. I don't know why you would pay that much for one unless you were just a collector. Now the ones I saw were very clean models though. And there are, I would say there's probably no commercial broadcasting radio station would still use these today. There's just no reason to. But now I do see a lot of YouTube videos where hobbyists have built studios in their homes similar to what I've got. Now mine's digital, but a lot of people like to recreate an era, you know, anywhere from the 60s on up through the 90s. And you can get the old equipment, you know, relatively cheap, but it's big and it's heavy. So again, unless you can just pick it up, if it's for sale in near where you live, you know, you can go get it. You can save some money that way. And if you can get it for a fairly, you know, reasonable price, some of the equipment. And some people got some really nice looking studios that I remember working. You know, equipment just like what they have, and it's just like a hobby for them and a fun thing to do, you know, to recreate. A lot of them may have been jocks back during that period, or they just liked radio during that period, and they'll buy the audio processing that was used back during that era too, and they try to replicate the same sound, whether it be from the 70s or 80s or whatever time period. So anyway, there you have it. It's another closet classic. It's the ITC Delta cart machine, used by many radio stations. I know all through my career, you know, they were always present, and they started phasing them out in the 90s. So anyway, there you have it. It's another closet classic, episode number 29 of AirWaves. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you down the dial.